Okay, so when I was trying to figure out how many repeats of the original Ashford design and the newly altered design I needed to perfectly recreate my Hungarian point towel design, I stumbled upon a few discrepancies. Mind you, the pattern as it is written out on screen right now works for all the patterns you see here, works for all the patterns explained in video 1. This version of Hungarian point, this nested diamond twill with horizontal squiggles, vertical squiggles, or squiggles in both directions, but it doesn't work for a perfect recreation of my original Hungarian point towel design. Why is that? Well, if you look at the points in this version, they are staggered, up, down, and in my original design, they are in one straight line. So either something went wrong with copy pasting in Excel, or the design is truly flawed and needs to be redesigned. So I did a comparison. As stated before, the new design has them staggered or alternating, whereas the original design has them in one straight line. So I know for sure now that this is not an issue with Excel copy pasting wrong, it is actually a design flaw. So it's time for some testing and see what we can alter to turn this one into this one. First test is showing that even though I'm working from top to bottom in Excel and weaving goes bottom to top, it doesn't matter for an infinitely repeating pattern. Yes, they look like mirror images right now because starting from top to bottom and bottom to top in the same sequence or the same amount of picks, of course, gives the opposite result. But this section in Excel that I started with also correlates perfectly to this section on the woven part, and they repeat infinitely up and down. So unless the direction of your first row going left or right in the original design matters, then you just need to make sure that you're starting in the right sequence, going top to bottom or bottom to top, back to front, front to back in this infinitely repeating pattern. That is highlighted in pinned comment on the first video, but I wanted to show it visually in Excel as well, that it really doesn't matter all that much for this specific pattern. Now over to our new pattern and correcting it to fit the old one. This right here is once again the original pattern flipped. As you can see, all those points are in one straight line, in this case in a row, but the original pattern, of course, it was in a column or in one warp strand having all the points of the Hungarian point. I took a cutout, started with this one because, well, this triangle here looks like the beginning part of our pattern, and I fitted as many as I could within this sequence. We have a mystery strand, a mystery column that doesn't appear anywhere in our pattern, and we need to cut off some pieces. The beginning and end aren't that big of an issue because you can just leave out as many strands on the left or the right as you need to fit the width that you're trying to weave. But cutting off a pattern in the middle seems kind of iffy. So I figured, okay, let's make a different cutout for test 2. Let's take this section of infinitely repeating strands of 3 and see what we can do there. Well, we have the same issue. Yeah, okay, beginning and end, doesn't really matter. We can just leave them out or add some extra. Doesn't really influence because it's just the border. And if you hem your edges, those disappear either way. So that doesn't matter at all, actually. And we can just do 1 repeat, 2 repeat of our original pattern, and then 1 repeat, 2 repeat of our newly altered pattern, which is where we started off. But then if we want to do that once again, so 2 of the original, 2 of the new one, 2 of the original, 2 of the new one, we need to cut off a part here and once again introduce this mystery line. and then just do the new pattern, original, original. So this is twice the original, twice the new one, a mystery piece, and then twice the original, twice the new one. This looks a lot like what we want to achieve with one mystery piece in the middle. So let's correct our previous pattern by adding in this mystery piece in between the new one and the old one. No matter how many repeats you do of old and new, if you're going old pattern to new pattern, we designed it as such that the point will appear here. But if you're going from the newly altered pattern back to the original pattern, there isn't really here a point shaping up. So, okay, we put in this mystery new piece in between going new to old. Let's figure out how we can thread our reed to accommodate for this new piece in our pattern. This is, that's a mystery piece, and if people also watched the first video, this is where I said, oh, I just probably cut it off too early or too late in the pattern. Doesn't really matter. Well, that bit me in the behind, because it actually does matter. This is our missing piece that makes it so it's an infinitely repeating pattern with our Hungarian points all in the same row. So let's figure out how we can make it. Of course, we have weft, warp. That is a simple tabby weave or plain weave on a rigid heddle. That means one in a slot, one in a hole, one in a slot, one in a hole. Then the second row here looks suspiciously like the first 4 strands of our front reed in our newly designed pattern. So what if we just copy it and go from there? So it's 2, 1, 1, 0. So we put in 2, 1, 1, 0, and we're trying to see if this is back up, this is front up, this one is the front reed up, and this is when both are in down position. Let's use the same logic of the first video and see if using this threading sequence works for our new design. We have one in the slot going to one in the slot that ends up being a warp facing thread when both are in the down position, which is this, the same as it is here. Then if any thread is going from a slot into a hole, it becomes weft facing when both are in down position. We need 3 of those. We have one strand here that can go from a slot to a hole. We have one strand here that can go from a hole to a slot. And we have another strand here that can go from a slot to a hole. So this would, in theory, work perfectly for an addition to our pattern and to fix the fact that they were not on the same row for all the points. Now, if you recall correctly, I said, okay, our original pattern was close to 2 of the original, then 2 of the new one, but then that mystery gap appeared that we can now fill in with our squiggly new piece. Just to make it a bit more pretty, we're going to remove all these borders. And if we now paste this section from top to bottom and from left to right, we once again recreate a Hungarian point pattern as such. If we now look at all these points, okay, point going down, point going up, point going down, or reversed in my brain. They are in the same row. Now the only thing we need to check is if this is exactly the same pattern by counting how long each zigzag is. If we look at this one, okay, we have a point, a section of 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections of 2, section of 3, and a point. And the same goes in that direction, up and down once again, because this is now an infinitely repeating pattern. And we checked by going both up and down, and they do end up correct. Now, is this the same as the original? Let's go to the original and let's count. We have 1 section of 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections of 2, a section of 3, and a point again. So this is exactly the same as this, and we now fixed the pattern. So if we want this infinitely repeating, we need 2 of the original, 2 of the new one, 1 of the squiggle, and repeat that from left to right, and then just go back up, front up, both down, infinitely down your section of warp threads down the length that you want to weave. Do take in mind that you're weaving from bottom to top on a loom, whereas my design now is going from top to bottom, as explained in the testing phase of this video. There is, however, one more thing you need to take into account, and that is if you flip the pattern 90 degrees, you also need to flip your warp and your weft if you want to keep the exact same design. Of course, in most cases, the color is more expensive to buy than the unbleached cotton, so you can just keep weft and warp threads the same, have all your waste yarn in the less expensive unbleached cotton, but then you do need to be aware of the fact that your pattern will be the negative of the original one. And to show that, I drew them out with the weft threads visible on the front and the warp threads visible on the back of the piece. This is the original one laying left to right, right to left, as Ashford has it on the website. These ones are my new design, with, of course, because the pattern is pointing upwards, our weft is going this direction and our warp is going this direction. Right now that doesn't look all that strange or all too different, but if we put them side by side in the same orientation, you can see that in this case the blue weft is only ever going over 2 at a time, whereas in the new design it is the white that is going over 2 at a time all the time, even though this is theoretically our warp in the original design here, warp weft. So white is our warp, but now it looks the same as the weft from the original. And the same goes for our blue weft threads here. They look the same as the original white warp threads. So do keep in mind that if you keep your weft and warp the same, that you will create the negative of your design. That in most cases isn't a big deal, but do keep in mind that floats of 3 long are a bit more loose than weft threads of only going over 2. I hope this helped people who wanted to get even more deep into the 2-1 Twill design and the Hungarian point. If there are any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'll reply to any of them as soon as I can.